It's a sunny day in Fort Myers, Florida, when a young boy runs into his front yard to play with his dog. These two are inseparable. A bond formed when 4-year-old Nico was given a German Shepherd puppy a year earlier and named him Tank. One day, Nico decides to take Tank out into the front yard for his favorite game of fetch. Suddenly, the neighbor's dog gets loose and darts straight for Nico. When Tank sees his best friend in danger, his instincts kick in. He knocks Nico out of the way for protection. With Nico safe, Tank defends his friend until the neighbor can get his dog under control. Nico's mom hears the screams and runs out, and the neighbor's dog is taken back into the house.
Baby, okay?
Fortunately, Nico and Tank don't suffer any injuries. After the incident, the neighbor vows to keep his dog on a leash when outside, and Tank becomes not only Nico's best friend, but also his neighborhood protector. Thanks to modern technology, it's easier than ever to get what you need sent right to your front door. Whether it's a large order of late-night impulse buys, some snacks meant for the dog, or a piping hot pizza with a side order of the Batusi dance. But today in Indiana, a man who ordered $120 worth of tacos believes that he's tracked down his delivery man. He's following the driver's last known location through their delivery app after his taco order never shows up. He convinces himself that the man in the hat is the delivery man, and the man in the yellow shirt is the delivery man's neighbor.
Listen, bro, he had an accident. I'm eating right now. I can show you I'm eating.
So where's the food at?
I don't know. He had an accident. Like, he talked to
So you're telling me you ain't got the food here?
No.
The man in the yellow shirt claims the delivery man lost the tacos after getting in some kind of automotive accident, but he never contacted anybody to cancel the order. However, the man behind the camera thinks these two have helped themselves to his tacos. The man recording claims he can smell his order behind the door and is none too thrilled about it.
So the food just disappeared in the accident.
I guess he took it back. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know any of this stuff.
When suddenly, the suspected delivery driver burst out the door
Stop!
with a knife. The taco fan didn't come for his food unarmed and quickly produces a 9mm handgun.
What's up?
Just leave, bro.
The dumbfounded duo are outgunned and quickly retreat into their home. Unfortunately, the man never recovers his tacos, and after getting a refund from the delivery app, orders lunch from a different neighborhood restaurant. But he believes he teaches them an important lesson that day. If you're working for a traceable delivery app and the food allegedly doesn't show up, don't be surprised if a hungry neighbor comes looking for their lunch.
What's up?
Just leave, bro.
In Jacksonville, a sheriff's officer is frantically searching for 2 lost toddlers after a neighbor saw one of the kids fall into their apartment complex's pond. The officer sprints to the water's edge, but there's no sign of the caller or the child. Then she spots the concerned neighbor and huffs it in her direction.
Where's the baby? Where? Where? Where's he at?
One of the toddlers is safe on land, but to much of the officer's horror, the second one is underwater. Without hesitating, the officer and the toddler's babysitter jump into the pond. But as if this situation weren't terrifying enough, there's more danger at play, because this officer can't swim. The officer dives underwater with no concern of drowning herself. Desperately searching the murky waters, suddenly she bumps into the toddler's arm and quickly pulls him to the surface. She passes him to his babysitter, who is also in the water, and starts struggling back to shore herself. She makes it to shallow waters, but the crisis is far from over. A neighbor now has the child, But after being underwater for more than a minute, the little boy is completely motionless. After having just nearly drowned herself, the officer doesn't miss a beat and starts giving the toddler CPR. Finally, paramedics arrive and are able to take over the emergency.
Pop her back?
Yes, I did.
The child is rushed to a nearby hospital where he is stabilized.
I'm getting him.
The officer is later given honors from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office for her bravery, and the toddler goes on to make a full recovery, all thanks to the watchful eye of the neighbor who called for help, and this officer who puts herself in harm's way.
I'm getting him.
Public parks are a great place to get to know the neighbors. But with so many ways to enjoy this shared space, there can sometimes be opposing expectations. For Ramon Cancel and his friends, it's an opportunity to picnic with their favorite music. But for this woman, it's fishing in silence.
Don't want to hear this crap.
And we don't want to hear you.
All to do is fish. All we want to do is fish.
Go and fish.
We can't, because all we hear is your music.
Ramon claims that the music is below the legal volume level in the park of 70 decibels. But that's not good enough for this neighbor.
This is crap. This isn't American music.
Hi, Karen. Go off.
Because, you know what? This is the
Can you close your
United
mouth?
States of
I love your speech.
America. America.
Such a way.
English. Not this crap. You know what? Senor. You know what?
Karen.
Okay. Tacos and a margarita.
Ramon refuses to back down and stands his ground as the woman continues to attack his native language. However, the neighbor makes a threat in an attempt to mute his music.
When I call the
Yeah, your
police,
husband is coming.
and when they come down, you'll know who sent them.
Who? Karen?
When the police...
Bye, Karen. Bye. Bye.
Oh, no. Don't,
Bye.
Don't by me.
Huh? Why? What are you gonna do?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how that language works.
Oh,
my
girl.
God.
As the woman's husband walks over carrying their fishing rods, Ramon and his friends decide to turn the music back on, louder and prouder than before.
You are so disrespectful.
I think you're disrespectful.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Music.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Finally, the enraged neighbor's husband pulls her away. With no sign of the police, Ramon and his friends are free to continue jamming to their speaker and catch no further complaints from angry anglers. It's a calm Friday afternoon in South London. A neighbor records a car speeding up to the gates of a school opposite his house and nearly hitting a skateboarder, before the skateboarder angrily lunges at the car's windshield with his board. The neighbor recording says that minutes earlier, the skateboarder was annoyed with the motorist for cutting him off the road. Now the driver ups the ante by picking his own instrument, an umbrella. The fighters soon lose their weapon of choice, and as the feud turns into an all-out brawl, the neighbor recording sounds the alarm to his partner in a cool as a British cucumber way.
Ali, come here a sec.
Everything okay? What should I do? Is anybody going to do anything?
Call the cops.
Should I call the police?
And like a true English gentleman, the neighbor stops recording and goes outside to intervene. No one is badly injured, and the police are currently investigating the incident. But thank goodness for the neighbor who keeps calm and breaks up the fight. Chicago, Illinois is a dog-eat-dog kind of city, and nobody knows that better than homeowner and electric engineer Matt Micah, who's called Chicago home his entire life.
My neighborhood is pretty population dense, very family oriented. It's a nice neighborhood. We have a lot of runners, families, nannies with kids. Unfortunately, as nice as my neighborhood here is, there's a ton of carjackings, shootings, and robberies. That's why I have so many cameras.
While working from his shop at home, Matt is able to keep an eye on his entire neighborhood. One thing he familiarizes himself with is his neighbor and her very large dog.
Every time I went out, I was very careful. And I'm like, all right, this lady ain't gonna be able to control that dog if that dog decides to go that way.
One day, while Matt is working at home, he notices in one of his camera feeds his neighbor taking her dog out for a walk and a jogger heading right towards them.
The runner was 20 feet away from the dog running toward the dog, and you can clearly see that the neighbor could not control that dog. He's running toward the dog, and the dog is already bucking like a bull.
Suddenly, the neighbor's dog manages to get off leash and immediately goes after the runner.
That's a small girl. The dog weighs more than the girl does. That dog's gonna go boom and come right out and go after the person.
The disorderly dog tries to bite the runner over and over. And when it becomes evident the neighbor isn't going to gain control of the dog, the runner makes a quick and desperate move.
I think his decision for jumping on the fence was probably the best bet. One thing that a lot of people don't think about is that dogs do not give up unless they're incapacitated. The outcome could have been pretty bad if he decided to take the dog on.
But just because the runner's safe doesn't mean the rest of the neighborhood is. Unable to reach the runner, the dog sets its sights on an older couple.
I was sort of scared that the dog was going to go and attack the lady and the guy getting out of the car. And then after that, yet again, go after the guy that was carrying like a grocery bag. Finally, the girl, got him under control. And I was just like, man, I've been telling this girl forever about this dog. This day was going to come. And here it was.
Matt heads outside to check on the runner, who thankfully only has a few scratches.
I saw the guy and, told him to come down and stay in my yard and just do whatever he has to do. I basically just went back to work. A few hours later, the police showed up.
After getting the full picture, the police write Matt's neighbor a ticket for having the dog off leash, and everyone goes their separate ways. Even though they all escaped the incident without serious injuries, Matt still thinks his camera footage contains a valuable lesson should a neighbor find themselves in a similar situation.
It could have been completely avoided if the runner just would have paid attention. Because if he would have just slowed down, let the dog calm down, he could have walked past the dog and just kept on running. The whole situation could have been avoided.
Who are you? I own this property, lady.
Squabbles over property lines are common throughout the United States.
Now you're trespassing. Boom.
Property right here.
You're trespassing.
Property line.
But for some neighbors, that nitpicking can turn into a nightmare. Case in point, this property line dispute that Cozad, Nebraska resident Leanne Hanks is facing with her next-door neighbor. Leanne wants to replace her old fence and build a new one at the property line, a difference of about a foot. But the neighbor alleges that the new fence would encroach on her land, so she won't give an inch.
Get out of my yard. Get out of my yard. Get out of my yard. Call them right now.
We're in the
The
yard.
yard ends here.
No.
Get out of my yard. You can't do this. Hey. You cannot do this unless you have a court order. They already told you that, Leanne.
No.
They already told you that. They've been here 100 times. Y'all are in the middle of a crime.
Settled. Okay.
Ah! Don't you touch! Hey! Don't touch!
Girl, you better back the up. Get out of my yard.
Don't touch!
Get out of my yard. Get it out of my yard. What are you guys doing? You don't have a permit to do this?
Yes, I do.
Where is it?
It's approved from the city.
Where is it? Where's the judge's permit? Because you know damn good and well you have to take this to a judge.
No, I don't. The city
We've
knows
lived in
and
this
the
house for
police
40
knows.
years.
Step off of
Don't tell me what to do in my own backyard.
With neither neighbor backing down about the property line, Leanne's neighbor decides to take matters into her own hands.
You're destroying our property. You're destroying our property.
You're on my property.
You're destroying our
You're
property.
on my property.
The neighbor calls the police as she insists this is her land. In fact, she's called them so many times about this dispute, she knows the officers' names.
I came home from work, Mark, and look what they're doing. They're digging holes in my.
They have their permits from the city to do it.
This is not their property.
The police are already familiar with who owns what bit of land.
On your survey, it says that the pin is underneath that tree.
Right.
There's a nail in the tree that the surveyor
It's
put
supposed to
through.
be pink. Mind your business. You've caused enough issues over here.
The police attempt to explain the situation to the neighbor as simply as possible.
They're going to put their fence up. If we have to come back over this and you're pulling this and preventing them to do that,
Leanne takes the case to court, and the judge orders a new survey and rules that Leanne is entitled to move her fence 14 inches to the property line. The neighbor concedes defeat, but as they place the stakes for the new fence, the neighbor supervises, making sure that Leanne doesn't claim even an extra fraction of an inch.
I think it's 15 inches.
He said it's 14 inches.
Within the coming weeks, the fence is finished, and the cops no longer come by. And if the saying, good fences make good neighbors, holds true, this neighborhood war is at an end.
Girl, you gotta back the up. Get out of my yard.
Don't touch.
Get out of my yard.
Beecher is a small town about an hour south of Chicago, and it comes with that expected small-town charm. It's why Antonio Estevez is raising his kids here.
Well, I'm a single dad, and, what I like about being in an apartment is, I can get help, with babysitting. All the neighbors watch each other's kids, so everybody's taking care of everybody's kids.
Antonio's neighbors are like one big happy family in their apartment building, except for one neighbor who lives right across the hall.
My first impression was that she was quiet. I never would have thought that the neighbor would have became what she became when I first met her.
One day, Antonio notices that his neighbor opposite is piling her trash into their shared hallway.
If somebody puts a trash bag in front of their door, if you're going out to throw out the trash, typically one would grab the other bag and just take it down. All the tenants follow the trash rule except for that one person right across the hall.
Frustrated with the piling trash, Antonio claims that he asks his neighbor to start taking her trash to the bins, but she doesn't respond well to the request.
I checked my doorbell camera and I seen that, she was throwing trash at my door, and I was shocked. And it wasn't just one little bag or two. She would do 3 bags for a box. I was pissed and flabbergasted, really, because who does that?
Antonio claims that he once again asks his neighbor to start properly disposing of her trash, but she doesn't, and instead responds by making mocking gestures in the view of his doorbell camera.
She just started to have erratical behavior.
With his neighbor's unpredictable and hostile behavior showing no signs of changing, Antonio decides to take a new approach.
I checked my doorbell ring and I noticed that she's in the hall, throwing the box in the middle of the floor. So I decided, enough is enough. Now it's time to play fire with fire. Maybe she'll stop. And that's when I picked up the trash that she had around everywhere and I piled it directly in front of her door for when she came out. That was the first thing she saw.
The next day, Antonio is confronted by another resident of the building who's been convinced by his neighbor that Antonio is the aggressor in their neighbor feud. But because those who don't live in Antonio's hallway, it's tough to tell who started things.
Why are you taking that? First of all, I'm not picking on anybody if you don't know what's going on.
The woman in the video she's one of the neighbors, and she was under the impression that I was the bad guy and that was all my trash because she's only going by what she hears. At that point, it was war.
I am. He's alone. That's why he's alone. I'm not alone, just so you know that. You're all alone. You're a loser. Remember, go get your girlfriend. Go get a girlfriend. Can't wait to knock your crackhead face. Go on. Go on. Bye-bye.
But as it turns out, Antonio's not the only neighbor fed up with the litter bug's antics. He claims several other neighbors complained to the town's health department.
Everybody started calling me because we were trying to get her to the point where it's like, okay, throw your trash out. You're being a pig. Like, cut it out already. She was getting just mean for anything and everything.
Finally, after enough residents speak up, Antonio's neighbor packs her things and moves out.
The day she left, everybody was screaming, clapping. We all had pizza and hung out together in the hallway just because we got our hallways back.
And even after all the personal insults, Antonio doesn't hold a grudge towards his former neighbor.
If I could say, anything to her, it would be basically seek help, because that is not normal behavior. Enjoy yourself, be true to yourself, and just leave people alone.
Can't wait to knock your crackhead face.
Many people have the dream of moving to the big city and being immersed in a busy lifestyle. And that fantasy comes true when Paul Mantia's friends convince him to move to Brooklyn from a small neighborhood in Woodstock, New York.
The neighborhood, it has beautiful buildings, you know, you got beautiful structures. It's got the total New York vibe.
Paul settles into his apartment and even makes friends with the landlord and her boyfriend, which makes Paul even more surprised about what happens a year later. One day, his ideal space becomes an ordeal when he hears a banging from the hallway and decides to investigate.
So I'm running down the stairs and I see the landlord's boyfriend beating on the door with one of the small hammer axes.
Behind the locked door is the other tenant in the shared apartment, a woman in her 40s, who the landlord's boyfriend alleges is behind on paying her rent.
You know, I'm going, what's going on? Oh my God, he's got an axe. What is he doing?
I can't imagine. I've never lived somewhere after I'm not paying rent. You're the one. You're living here illegally. The agreement, I understand, was you pay $900 a month. You haven't paid. You're down something like $6,000, $7,000.
I have rent receipts. You're going to jail. You're going to jail.
Rent receipts from when?
You're going to jail.
From when did you have rent receipts? I know you haven't paid. It's been a long time. You haven't paid the full agreement.
You're going to jail.
The boyfriend also claims that the door to the tenant's place was put up without permission and was supposed to be part of the shared living space.
And who gave you permission to put this door in? And it certainly wasn't screwed in shut. And it's a shared house. For your share of the house, it was never a separate apartment.
Paul initially stands back in shock. This is the first time he's witnessed such behavior, but he's also concerned for the other tenant.
She was a sweet, kind woman. And he comes out and he's screaming and yelling at her. She's scared and she doesn't know what to do. And I'm not going in there. I'm like, you know, he's got an axe in his head.
With half the door gone, the man with the axe continues to hack away at it, and he isn't showing signs of stopping.
I'm shaking, I'm nervous. I'm so scared for my neighbor at that point.
How can you justify staying here, how?
The tenant frantically calls the police. While Paul and his neighbors wait on the cops, he is able to calm down the landlord's boyfriend until he stops.
I'm like, hey, listen, get out of her apartment, you know, authorities are on their way, leave her alone. And at that point, he stopped.
The man with the axe now calm, Paul's neighbor escapes out the side door, never to return to the shared home again. After the incident, he no longer has contact with the landlord's boyfriend, and calm is once again restored in his neighborhood.
I just like to live a peaceful life with no drama, you know? Simple life, you know?
In the United States, nothing brings neighbors together quite like the 4th of July. Whether celebrating over a hot barbecue, gathering to be dazzled by a spectacular display of fireworks, or getting the community together for a good old-fashioned parade, where everyone will want a front row seat. And today in Lubbock, a group of neighbors are in a full-on fist fight because according to the shorter woman in red, both families wanted to snag the same spot for the parade. As the battle intensifies, other neighbors pour on top of the brawlers, desperately trying to separate them. With dozens of children around, nobody wants to see one of them accidentally catch a stray punch. As the fight grows further out of control, the men in white wildly throw punches at one another. They spill to the ground, and nobody knows what might happen next. The men in white duke it out in the grass when the neighbor in the blue dress steps over to separate them. The neighbor in the baseball jersey loudly complains, and just when it looks like the fight is ending, another pair of neighbors lock up, and bystanders rush to get the children away from the melee. An officer steps between them and breaks up the brawl before it gets any worse. After the camera stops recording, the fight is broken up, and no one involved decides to press charges. Remember, next time you're celebrating the 4th of July, don't let explosive tempers blow up a perfectly good parade, even if it means sitting one row behind your neighbors.